Hey YouTube, Lizzie B here. I know it's been a minute since I've done a video, but I am not gonna lie, I've been really busy with work, and I've also been sick, and it took me a few weeks to, kick that. So now I'm back making this video, and let's get to it. I wanted to make this video because in the long hiatus since I've last made a video, something's been coming to my attention over and over again, and I've been meaning to talk about it. This video is in line with a lot of the other ex-Jehovah's Witness videos. Don't worry, it's not another teeth update video, although I do need to make another one of those soon, so don't beat me up if I do decide to make one right after this. But with this video, I wanted to talk about cults. And the reason this has come to my attention recently is because of the whole R. Kelly situation. I've been meaning to make a video about this since the news broke a few months ago. And for those of you who don't know who R. Kelly is or what the news is, R. Kelly is an R&B singer that rose to fame in the 90s with a group called Public Announcement. He rose to fame and has been really big ever since. He's a very famous guy. I think he won a few Grammys. One of the things he's also known for is being a pedophile. There were some videotapes that came out of him having sex with underage girls. And then also he married the late singer Aaliyah when she was like 14 years old, or I think they met when she was 14 and got married at 15. Either way, it's well known within the industry that he's a pedophile, although he's never been convicted. So I guess, that makes him an alleged pedophile. Either way, there's like a ton of lawsuits against him, and he's paid out a ton of money to keep mouths shut, but still people continue to work with him. And he's still rich, he's still famous, he's still making music, he still puts on concerts, he still has a ton of fans that will defend him to the death. But some of the recent news that broke a few months ago on BuzzFeed, I believe it's the original author that outed R. Kelly about the videotapes. It's the same person that published this article on BuzzFeed. But they published an article that R. Kelly has a sex cult. And this does not surprise me. A lot of people are kind of surprised that R. Kelly would be so bold to even have a sex cult in the first place, considering that has such a well-known history of sex abuse. And, I'm sure people are also surprised that he's been able to do as much as he's done, and people are still falling for his tricks or whatever you want to call it. But it doesn't surprise me because he's been able to kind of go on for as long as he has unchecked. So, of course, he's going to get better at this, at whatever he's doing. And so a lot of people are surprised about the brainwashing aspect of this as well. And, to that, I say, please read the article. It's really compelling, and it'll blow your mind about how strategic R. Kelly is in forming this cult. But the reason why I brought up the whole R. Kelly thing in the first place is because I want to talk about cults and brainwashing in general. I do so many videos where I talk about my personal experiences being a Jehovah's Witness and waking up from being indoctrinated, into this group that I do refer to as a cult. And of course, I get a ton of comments from people who want to argue the technicalities of what makes something a call, or what doesn't make it a call, and whatnot. I try not to get caught up in those conversations, because if you Google the word cult, you're going to, come up with a ton of different definitions. So I'm not going to argue about which definition is right. In this video, as with all of my videos, I'm going to talk about my personal viewpoints and my red flags that I've seen and now know to check for in trying to figure out whether something is a high control group or a cult. So why do I feel like making this video in the first place? Number one, I haven't made a video in a while, but I want to make this video because after waking up from being indoctrinated as a Jehovah's Witness, I started doing some research, and I'm sure many of you have done the same. And I saw so many patterns and similarities between Jehovah's Witness religion and other cults that it really just shook me to my core. And I realized that it's easier to be brainwashed than I thought. And of course, after seeing R. Kelly's sex cult situation come to light, I immediately was able to identify some of the techniques he was using to take advantage of these young women and their parents. But what stood out to me the most is all of the confusion and judgment that came from people in the comments who would say stuff like, These are grown women. They should have known better. They're choosing this for themselves. This is what they want. Who would be so dumb as to join a cult in the first place? And just so on and so forth. And while I totally get it, R. Kelly's a piece of shit, and I don't understand how anybody would give him the time of day anyway, I also think that the public isn't educated enough about brainwashing to be able to judge how easy it is to manipulate other people to do what you want them to do. If you're not educated about it, about brainwashing and how it works, you are vulnerable. So the way that a lot of these cults and high control groups operate should be common knowledge, but it's not. For example, if someone were to roll up in a van with no windows, open a sliding door, and ask you if you want some candy or if you can help them find their puppy, you would immediately think they're a kidnapper or a child molester or whatever. And because we're warned so much about sexual predators' techniques and methods of grooming, luring children, tricking people, that it's become a trope. So parents teach their kids and they learn about these techniques themselves so that they're not victimized. But when it comes to ways that adults can be tricked, it's not common knowledge at all. Like, personally, before knowing that I'd been in a cult, I thought cults were just like weird religious groups where you wear hoods and chant and perform animal sacrifices and stuff. I had no idea. And I don't know if any of you have seen the episode on Martin where Martin joins a cult.
Brother Sunflower, yes. It is time for the supreme test of faith. Lay down, brother.
No, I'm cool. I got some rest early. I ain't sleeping.
That was the extent of my knowledge. That's all I knew. And sure, I'd heard about other groups like Jonestown and the Branch Davidians and stuff, but those groups might as well have existed on the moon, for all I knew. And, I'm guilty of dismissing those people as crazy. If, in my opinion, they fell in the same group as, the Martin episode, like it was a cartoon to me. So my viewpoint of that was so myopic that it was the equivalent of a child that thinks a child molester is a person with a weird mustache and a cape. I assumed that the only thing I needed to worry about as an adult outside of being assaulted was someone trying to hustle me out of my money. I didn't realize that I needed to be aware of groups that wanted to take control of my life. There's plenty of groups out there like that. And so with all of this said, I just want to talk about some of the red flags that I should have looked for and that we should all look for in making sure that we're not at risk of joining a high control group or cult. First one, isolation. Isolation is the key to brainwashing, and any group that demands isolation from everyone outside of the group is exhibiting red flag behavior. Why? Because in order to influence you, they have to make sure that no one else can. They don't want anyone giving you any ideas that might go against what they're telling you. And if they're getting you to do stuff that's outside of your nature and that you don't want to do, it's easier to exert pressure on you if you don't have a support system. So they teach you that people on the outside wouldn't understand, or everyone outside of the group is a bad influence. And by isolation, I don't mean you're not allowed to ever interact with anyone who's not in the high control group. What I mean is that anything further than a transactional interaction is frowned upon. So yes, isolation is usually a major step when it comes to brainwashing. And to use the example of R. Kelly, the first thing he did with the women that he's taken advantage of, when they start to live with him, he throws away their phone so that they can't reach out to friends or family. He gives them a new phone where they can only call him, and all of their other interactions are just extremely limited outside of him. So yes, sex cult, religious cult, whatever. It doesn't matter. Isolation is usually a key ingredient when it comes to brainwashing. Number two, a lot of rules. And this one I have to get into detail when it comes to rules. High control groups aren't called high control groups because they give you your freedom. It's the opposite. They want to control every aspect of your life. So they chalk up their strict code of conduct to their unique position within society. For example, if it's a religious group, they might say that as God's chosen group, they have to live to a higher set of standards. Maybe if it's a group controlled by someone like R. Kelly, he might tell the women that, being that he's a celebrity, he needs privacy, or that this is the only way to become successful in music, etc. Like anything like that. But regardless of the reasons, the rules dictated by the group are usually really detailed and control how members should think, how they should act, how they should dress and feel, and so on and so forth. Also, these rules can't be questioned, or if there is an explanation for these rules, many times the answers are vague, they're super convoluted and confusing, or just stupid, like just stupid answers. For example, ask any Jehovah's Witness why they don't celebrate birthdays or Mother's Day, or why men can't wear beards. In R. Kelly's sex cult, the women aren't allowed to leave their bedrooms, and they have to walk around in sweatpants and sweat clothes so as not to tempt any man that may visit. And when men do visit, these women are supposed to face the wall. All of these rules clearly benefit the group's leaders and giving them tremendous levels of control over their followers, but those who have to abide by these rules don't get any say in what they can't pick and choose which rules they want, although they may have the false idea that they're in total control over their entire lives and all of the decisions. Also, there's a few offshoots of the rule following thing when it comes to high control groups. So one offshoot is that the groups teach its members to police themselves. For example, in the BuzzFeed article about R. Kelly, they talk about how one of the women laughed at another man's joke when R. Kelly wasn't around. One of R. Kelly's girls who was nearby immediately reported back to R. Kelly that this young woman had broken one of his rules. So these groups teach members to police each other so they can keep everyone in line without doing a ton of footwork. It's like the gift that keeps on giving in a way. And those of you who were and are Jehovah's Witnesses know how this goes. I know personally, I always got a sinking feeling when I would see a Jehovah's Witness from my congregation while I was out and about with my friends or with my boyfriend or, with family at the time. And so it was like being in an espionage film. It was always just checking around corners to make sure that nobody was seeing me live a normal life. So another offshoot would be that members get to a point where they're no longer able to make decisions for themselves. They depend so much on the rules and the leadership that's telling them what to do that critical thinking stops completely. And then on top of that, compounded with the isolation and distrust of outside groups, they're conditioned to do whatever the leadership of their group is telling them to do. And so their entire life is like a game of Simon Says. And, I touched on this a little bit with other videos about how Jehovah's Witnesses don't go to police because they don't think to. It's not an authority to them. Number 3 red flag would be no graceful exit. Any group that doesn't allow you a graceful exit is exhibiting red flag behavior. And this is what I mean by graceful exit. I'm sorry, Mom, in advance. I'm going to have to use one of your stories. But my mom was a Jehovah's Witness, as many of you know. But before she was a Jehovah's Witness, she went to a Baptist church. And so I don't know if this is still a rule, but it was when my mom was baptized. But when you become a Jehovah's Witness, you have to denounce whatever church you may be a part of and let them know you don't intend to go to their church anymore. And so my mom had to write a letter to the pastor or the reverend. I don't know which one it is for Baptist. She had to write a letter to the reverend of the church. And I think she hand delivered it to him. And he read it in front of her or something. I'm so sorry, Mom, if I'm getting this story wrong. But the point of the story is this. After he read my mom's letter, he looked at my mom and he said this: "Sorry to see you go, but you're always welcome back." And that was it. He didn't tell her she'd committed a sin or that she was a demonic person. He didn't refuse to speak to her. If he saw her on the street, nobody at the church was told not to speak to her. He didn't tell her that she was bad association. She was able to maintain her relationship with whoever went to said church. There was no announcement made, and the guy meant what he said. She was welcome back whenever she visited. And I'm not saying this as an endorsement of Baptist churches, but I'm saying this to make a point. Now let's compare this antidote that I use to high control groups and cults. There are cults that people literally have to escape from. There are groups where people have to lie to the members and say they're doing one thing and then sneak off and never come back. If you watch Leah Remini's special on A&E, I think it's on A&E, about Scientology, or if you've seen the HBO documentary Going Clear, you'll see ex-members of these groups being chased and harassed and followed with cameras and being called squirrels and all kinds of names. I think it's squirrels. The high control group that I belong to likes to publicly shame and excommunicate people. They call it disfellowshipping when those people decide to leave. And so if a person feels they no longer want to be a Jehovah's Witness, they have to decide whether they want to go through a really traumatic experience of being shut out from everyone they know and love. So when I say no graceful exit, I mean that leaving the group with one's reputation intact within said group is nearly impossible. And once you leave, you're no longer able to associate with the group members anymore, whether those group members be biological family or any of the association that you were told to only be around in the first place. You were isolated and conditioned to only be around these people, and now they're all cut off from you. And this has resulted in people becoming depressed. Some people have even killed themselves. This is the opposite of a graceful exit. But these groups need, they need the cost to be so high that they can limit the amount of people who actually leave. So, for example, there are tons of Jehovah's Witnesses that are stuck. They know they don't want to be there anymore. They know the religion is not for them, but they can't leave because the psychological cost of leaving is too high and they have too much to lose. They are being, exploited emotionally. Now, if you ever want to know if if a group doesn't allow for a graceful exit, try to reach out to former members. If a good 90% of the people who've left the group have horror stories about having left the group, it's a red flag. Number 4 would be recruitment. If a key part of your being a member of a group is your being able to recruit others to said group, this is a red flag. As I've mentioned a million times before, field service was the bane of my existence, but it was one of the main elements of being a Jehovah's Witness. Being able to bring in people and get them to become baptized was like the ultimate sign of faith. They took the Bible literally when it said become fishers of men, and they taught all kinds of bait and switch tactics to get people to join and switch it up on them. For example, Jehovah's Witnesses notoriously go after people who are emotionally vulnerable. Those who just lost a loved one or feel downtrodden in some way. R. Kelly, for example, looks for young women who are starstruck by him and want to get into the music industry. Almost all of the stories about women in his cult starts with him telling them he's going to help them with their singing career, and then ultimately those women are instrumental in guiding other women into the group and training them as well. So there are a ton of groups that use all kinds of methods to bring new people in, and it's not just religious groups. There's sex trafficking groups, white supremacists, multi-level marketing companies utilize a lot of the same techniques to get people into their groups and then to get those people to recruit others. Stephen Hassan, in his book Combating Cult Mind Control, he talks about love bombing, where members of a group will be super nice and loving toward potential members to trick them into wanting to be a part of the group. And of course, once they're in many cases, they're isolated. They're made to follow a ton of rules. They can't question these rules, and they can't really make a graceful exit. So another example would be multi-level marketing companies, which really counts on its members to recruit others. It may not be a cult in every sense of the word, but they do some, culty stuff in terms of recruitment. For example, I've gone to a number of parties that friends have thrown only to see that it's a recruitment meeting for a pyramid scheme. And you can always tell because, they always start with a guy that's given a slideshow presentation of his luxurious houses and cars. And he's talking about how rich he is without having to lift a finger because he got 5 people to join the group and they each got 5 people and so on and so forth. But ultimately, many of these groups rely on its members to convince people to join. And to a large extent, that's how they measure someone's worth within the group. They also give people the idea that they're saving lives or that they're helping people. So these people ultimately will use whatever method they need to use to get someone to join, because they think the ends justifies the means, no matter how horrible or deceitful the means are. So I know as a Jehovah's Witness, the friends would tell householders that we wanted to study the Bible with them, but we all knew that wasn't it. That wasn't the only thing. If you had a householder that you only wanted to study the Bible with and you had no intention of the person getting baptized, it would be a failure. It would be considered a failure. Recruitment was everything. So, that's number 4 for sure. So that's all of the red flags that I'm going to share for now. Of course, I'm very aware that there are a ton of other red flags when it comes to high control groups and cults. I haven't mentioned the distrust of the outside world, giving up personal goals and activities, limiting information that group members receive. I haven't mentioned discouraging asking questions or doubting anything or independent thinking. So I know that I have not listed every single red flag, but I'm just, at this point, like I got other stuff to do today. But also, despite many of the comments that I've gotten on my videos, cults are not just groups that follow one charismatic person. Sure, some of them are, but that is not the characterization that defines every single cult or high control group. They can be structured around any belief system or human activity whatsoever. So, for example, there are companies that employ cult techniques and that can be classified in a sense as a cult or a high control group. There are group awareness training cults. There are multi-level marketing cults, as I mentioned before, commercial cults, political cults. We've been seeing a ton of these pop up. There are terrorist cults, there are satanic cults, there are cults built around the arts. I saw a documentary a while ago that was on Netflix called Holy Hell, produced by a guy who talks about his experience in the Buddha field cult, which was supposed to be centered around a meditation group. So there's vitamin cults. So yeah, cults can be based around charismatic people for sure. But to limit the definition to that would be like limiting the definition of what classifies something as food to just peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. There are other foods in the world. You know what I mean? So that's it for now. I wanted to talk a bit more about the prevalence of cults in our society, but I really gotta go. And so this is it for now. I promise I will be doing more videos. I'm so sorry to all of those people who've been like, Liz, where have you been? Like, I told you I've been sick and I've been busy. Sick and tired. I really hope this video has been helpful to people, because I know for me, there were so many things that Jehovah's Witnesses did that fell into the categories and that fell under the red flags that I mentioned in this video, but I never thought to associate a lot of those behaviors with cults. So if you're studying with Jehovah's Witnesses, if you're studying with any religion, if you're trying to be a part of any group and you feel like they're doing some of the things, some of these red flag, behaviors, please ask questions, use critical thinking, find out. You never know. And it's important to be careful and just be aware of what you're allowing into your life and ways that your life can change based on something that you had no idea you were getting into. So just know what you're getting into with any group that you join. And also, be on the lookout for other people. Perhaps you have relatives or family members that don't know about something and they may get involved in something and you have no idea. So don't take my word for it. If you don't agree with my red flags, go online and do some research yourself. It's easier than you think to be brainwashed or to be influenced. Just because you're an adult and you're grown up and you're allowed to make your own choices, does not mean that people who mean you harm can't take advantage of you, manipulate you, or utilize information that you may have given them to change your life and to try to take control of your life. So that's all I got. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks so much for all the comments and messages that I've gotten from you guys. I really appreciate it, and I really do plan on making more videos. So that's all I got. Leave your comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, and bye.